It's a flying fish. The fish that stays above the water longer than others. Just like the Atlantic herring, it swims almost on the surface. But what if we went much deeper? We descend deeper and deeper, and now we are separated from the surface by 200 meters of water. We are in the mesopelagic or twilight zone of the ocean, which extends across the globe and is located at a depth of 200 to 1,000 meters. The water in this place is cold, about 8 degrees Celsius, and the amount of light immediately drops. But even despite all this, life is in full swing in the twilight zone. In this place, you can find both microscopic organisms and the largest on the planet. Some spend their entire lives here, while others migrate from one surface to another. The mesopelagic region is home to a diverse biological community, from bristlemouths, blobfish, jellyfish, giant squids to sharks. Here, you can even meet the well-known great white shark, which can dive to a depth of up to 1,200 meters, as well as blue whales, which can dive up to 500 meters in case of any danger. But let's talk about the permanent inhabitants of this place. For example, about such giants as the herring king. But this is not the giant herring, which is so called because of its size, and which can be bought at the market. The giant oarfish is a species of oarfish of the family Regalesidae, which lives at a depth of 700 meters. This giant was even included in the Guinness Book of Records as the longest living bony fish. The largest recorded individual was 11 meters long. Probably one of the most interesting things about this fish is the way it swims. Herring kings usually swim with their heads up, placing their bodies in a position close to vertical. They move forward due to the wave-like movements of the dorsal fin. Also, don't forget about the blobfish, which has become a popular joke on the internet. It became popular because of its unhappy expression, which gave this fish the title of one of the strangest creatures on Earth. This fish supposedly lives at depths from 600 to 1,200 meters. The species of this fish has been studied quite poorly, so it is impossible to say anything about it. But one thing is still known. This fish is on the verge of complete extinction due to the expansion of deep-sea fishing. From all this, we can say that the mesopelagic is an intermediate place between the surface, in which many well-studied organisms live, and a huge oceanic abyss that extends many kilometers inland, in the same 90% of the world's oceans that are unexplored, and we will continue diving there. Well, we have crossed the 1 kilometer mark and found ourselves in the very depths of the world's oceans. This is where the bathypelagic begins. This zone extends to 4,000 meters. And this place can be considered practically the middle of the world's oceans. Plunging deeper and deeper, the light that can still be seen here will gradually fade, making the deepest point of the bathypelagic almost dark. But here, as above, there is life in all its diversity, but the rules of the game are completely different. There are almost no plants in this zone, but in their place something else comes, which makes all the animals in it either predators or scavengers. In bathypelagic, it rains every day, but not ordinary rain, but rain from a huge number of corpses of living beings. And because of all this, there is a cardinal rule here. If you don't kill, then they will kill you. The few species of animals that survive there have long adapted and undergone evolutionary changes in order to survive. Since there is practically no light, most animals are blind, and those who have vision have quite large eyes. Because most of the inhabitants of this zone have no vision, animals do not have camouflage or bright colors because they are unnecessary. Because there is little food, they have a slow metabolism, and their muscles are small, and the animals grow much slower. And this can continue for a very long time. This place is characterized by fish species such as anglerfish, which are very famous in the world due to their scary appearance. They use a tiny, bioluminescent, fishing rod-shaped lure to attract prey, thus hunting prey that may be even larger than themselves. Also here you can sometimes find giant squids, swimming here for easy prey. And the strangest thing is that even at a depth of 3.5 kilometers, you can meet sharks. Yes, you heard right, exactly sharks. And there are several of them. One of them is the Brazilian luminescent shark, which is just right for this place, and is one of the smallest sharks on the planet. It lives at a depth of up to 3.7 kilometers. It differs from the sharks we all know in that it has weak muscles, which is typical for such a place. And it also has tiny fins, which makes it impossible to pursue prey, and therefore the shark has to hunt from an ambush. But the most noticeable difference is the glow-in-the-dark body. The bathypelagic is just the beginning of the abyss into which we have begun to plunge. Then something frightening awaits us, a place in which we don't want to be, a place where the word light means absolutely nothing. Abyssopelagic from 4,000. Well, we ended up in a place where there is no light at all, even at the very beginning of this zone. We are at a depth of 4,000 meters from sea level, and this is abyssal, which means bottomless in Greek. This place is a real abyss, in which there is practically nothing but the eternal darkness and cold of the ocean depths, below only the bottom and depressions. And in this abyss there is still life, but only that which is capable of withstanding the unimaginable pressure, which here is about 775 kilograms per square centimeter. So the number of living beings here is much less than it was before, and the rules by which they live are the same as in the previous zone. Some species of chiasmodons, bathypelagic, anglerfish, and sea snails are found here. They are mostly blind and have ancient origins, and most of the fauna here lives on the bottom. In the water here, you can find anglerfish, which we talked about earlier, as well as chiasmodons, which are distinguished by their unusual appearance. And this is not an open belly as you might think, but a very large mouth with numerous wedge-shaped teeth, which can swallow prey several times larger than the size of the fish itself. Also here you can find one of the deepest sea fish on Earth, Abyssal galathea. It is usually found at a depth of 3,110 meters, but one of these fish was discovered at a depth of 8,370 meters, and this means that it was found today at the maximum depth accessible to fish. But what awaits us next? If the abyssal is practically the bottom of the ocean, but it is not always the case. Then hadopelagic begins, the beginning of which varies depending on the bottom. Somewhere the zone begins at 5,000 meters, and in other places at 8,400 meters. This is a zone that occurs mainly in deep sea trenches, and the further we dive into hadopelagic, the less numerous and less studied the fauna that lives there. At a depth of over 9 kilometers, there are only a few dozen species of living creatures, and after 10 kilometers, only 20 species remain that are able to survive at such a depth. This place is just emptiness, hundreds of meters of water, and nothing else except the bottom. An example of hadopelagic is the Mariana Trench, which is 10,994 meters deep. And this is the deepest point on the Earth's surface. We cannot go further than the Challenger Abyss, and at such a depth, there live a relatively small number of living creatures that can develop and live only in such an environment and at high pressure. Foraminifera, polychaeta worms, isopods, mollusks, and holothurians. Some species of these creatures inhabit the Mariana Trench, and only there these species can exist. But still, the Mariana Trench has still been little studied, and we only have to find out what other living creatures live there. And if you liked the video, like and subscribe to the channel. This is the best support for us. Click on the bell to be the first to watch new videos.